This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Dear people of God, He's coming. He's coming. The young voice rang out over the din of the crowd. A ripple of excitement followed. They all became silent as they heard the clop of the horses' hooves. Those magnificent horses came into view pulling the most elaborate coach, 8 tons of gilded gold. They suddenly burst into cheers. There he is! There he is! I can see him! And a special event. The vestige of a time gone by. The ceremony and tradition fills people with awe. For what? All that expense, all that time, all that energy, all that hullabaloo to crown a king? And the king doesn't have any power. The parliament holds the reins in Britain. He doesn't do anything. And on top of that, he was already king. The moment Queen Elizabeth died, the crown immediately passed to him. So he got dressed up. So the bishops did their thing. So all those people, those dignitaries, gathered for the ceremony. So they did it all. The rites were completed. Nothing changed from before it happened to after. So what is everyone so excited about? And for whom? King Charles is hardly in the prime of his life. And he is not likely ever going to be as popular as Queen Elizabeth was. His younger days were filled with scandal, and the people are not likely to forget. He's never won a great military victory. He won't be leading his people into battle anytime soon. He's not a visionary, not a especially wise man, a discerning judge, a highly respected thinker. Kings come to power either by might or by right. His mom was queen, so he gets to be king. It is as simple as that. Is that really worth the celebration? Tonight, a handful of people gather together in churches like ours where the pastor is too stubborn to let the day go by unnoticed. Some will have rites to follow, but it's hardly extravagant. The world doesn't recognize today as a day of celebration. And you might say, well, the memory of a day that was special hardly ever matches the day itself. But we could go back to that first day. And there you would see the disciples standing on a hill. Their rabbi says farewell, and they, like usual, don't understand what is about to happen in front of their very eyes, so they ask some foolish questions, and Jesus is taken up in front of them. A cloud hides him from their sight, and they're standing there staring up into the sky until two angels come down and stand beside them. What are you looking at? Didn't you know he was going to go? This same Jesus will come back in the same way you have seen him go into heaven. But until then, didn't he give you work to do? Why are you standing here? Go down into Jerusalem. That's it. That's all we see of the great king's coronation. However, I wonder if we were to see it from the other side, if we would have had a very different view. I can hardly imagine the excitement and the celebration among the heavenly hosts that day. The psalmist could imagine it. God has gone up with a shout. The Lord with the sounding of the trumpet, our psalmist declares. The angels of heaven have seen the fullness of the King's glory, his greatness. The angelic armies know whom they receive. The throne is his by right, not because he so happened to be born of a royal bloodline, although that was also true. He is the only begotten of the Father from all eternity. His mother Mary was from the house and line of David. Even his stepfather Joseph was from that royal bloodline. But no, the throne is his by right, because he spoke, and it was. Through him all things hold together. The creation belongs to him. The world and all who live on it, they are his. The throne is his by right because he is one with the Father, equal in all majesty and glory. He is the Lord over all the earth. The angels watch with wonder, not because the Son is assuming his rightful throne, but because he left that throne in the first place. He set aside the glory that was his. He humbled himself to take on human flesh, to be born, to live, to die. The throne was his by right, but it is also his by might. Yes, the Lord Most High is awesome. He is the great King over all the earth. He subdues the peoples under us and the nations under our feet. He chooses our inheritance for us, the pride of Jacob whom he loves. Everyone who could stand in his way, he has defeated. All who would threaten his people, he has subdued. Everything that God has promised is his to give. He humbled himself to take human flesh, and he earned every bit of the coronation, the celebration. It is for him. Israel was always surrounded by enemies. Threats always lay on their borders. However, the worst threats to God's people always came from within. Their hard hearts refused to trust in God. Their own idolatry separated them from God's love. God gave them great and glorious promises, but they, through sin and unbelief, rejected everything God gave. Israel was surrounded by enemies, but no enemy was worse than themselves. Today we might feel we are surrounded by enemies. The world is a hostile place, and sometimes it seems like we won't be able to avoid being sucked into another international conflict. When enemies threaten our friends, our allies, how can we just stand by? We all want peace. War is a very terrible thing, but peace requires the cooperation of everyone. War only requires one enemy. So it seems when the enemies abound, war draws near. It's not just that. In our culture, we see that it has embraced amorality. Nothing is absolutely right or wrong. Well, except disagreeing with the evil they decree is good. Sin is celebrated everywhere. You can hardly watch anything, read anything, or go to any store without having evil shoved in your face. But don't you dare speak out. We are surrounded, and we feel that way, especially when we're gathered in such a small group like that. It seems like enemies must be all around us. But as it was in Israel, so it is today. The enemies of God's people may be all around, but the worst enemy is still within. I react to these perceived threats not in trust in God, but with fear and worry and anger. Instead of looking away from sin, we take our little peek either because we find that peak excitement or so that we can pat ourselves on the back with how much better we are than those out there. The devil knows exactly what temptation to level against you, what sin you will excuse. Your heart longs to do those things that God says will destroy your soul. With all the danger around, what hope do we have? We think we need to prepare to fight, or else, how will we survive? And this, my friends, is the joyful shout of Ascension Day. This is the reason we will join the angels in celebrating the coronation. The writer to the Hebrews proclaims, after he provided purification for sins, he took his seat at the right hand of the Majesty on high. David had written, you made him a little lower than the angels for a little while. You crowned him with glory and honor. You put everything under subjection under his feet. The Hebrew writer to the Hebrews again explains, indeed, in putting everything in subjection to him, God left nothing that is not in subjection to him. At the present time, we do not yet see everything in subjection to him, but we look to Jesus, now crowned with glory and honor, because he suffered death. My friends, this is why Jesus left his throne, so that he could subdue all the enemies of God's people. He left his glory to live in humility. He left the perfect joys of heaven to endure every temptation and pain on earth. He faced the devil. He won. He confronted false teachers, and he turned them aside. He was arrested by the sword of corrupt government, condemned by a corrupt system, and he was crucified on the tree of shame. But they could not stop him. He carried our sin, but he remained pure. By his death, he destroyed death's chains. He entered the darkness of the grave to break forth with the light of life. He rose victorious. He proclaimed peace to his disciples, to all people. The ransom price has been paid. The serpent's head has been crushed. The world's power has been shattered. Sin's power has been broken. All this work has been done. He completed everything that was needed to be done. His victory is secure. The throne at the right hand of God, the throne of all power and majesty, it is his by the might of his power. He has won the victory. Jesus has gone up with a shout. The hosts of heaven raised their voices in praise and blared their horns. And we can join the celebration because Christ's ascension is our comfort and our joy. The work is done. Salvation is won. The inheritance belongs to God's people. The devil cannot take it away. The world cannot tarnish it. Even our own weakness cannot make it go away from us. Therefore, clap your hands, shout to God, sing a loud song, join the coronation celebration. I won't look down on those who watched all the live streaming of all of those events that took place around the coronation. People even watched people sit down at the grand banquet. I just can't believe that. But I had zero interest. See, King Charles is not my king. What he does has no effect on my life. I have nothing to celebrate. I am not part of his people. I wish him well. I hope he does good things for our allies, the British people. But I just can't get excited. But today is Ascension Day, and we have reason to celebrate. Jesus is King. Jesus is our King, the King. God has placed all things under his feet, and he rules all things for the good of his people, the church. Jesus is your king. And we know exactly what kind of king he is. What kind of king he will always be. He has demonstrated his great love for you. He has shown you his great wisdom. He has sacrificed himself for the people he loves. He has risen in power and glory. He has proclaimed your sins are all forgiven. He reigns. He sits on his throne to govern for you. He listens to your requests. He defends you in all danger. He provides for all of your needs. He keeps you, body and soul, from now and to eternity. We have reason to celebrate. Today is the day we remember his coronation. But we don't celebrate from the sidelines, hoping to catch a glimpse as he goes by, because this will be our only opportunity to see the King in all of his majesty like that. No, when we gather together, we celebrate in the King's presence. We are invited to his table. We get to sing his praises, and he loves to hear them. Our King lives forever. Lift up your hearts. We will join the throng. Hear the words of Psalm 47. All you peoples, clap your hands. Shout to God. Sing a loud song. Yes, the Lord Most High is awesome. He is the great King over all the earth. He subdues all people under us and the nations under our feet. He chooses our inheritance for us. It is the pride of Jacob whom he loves. God has ascended with a joyful shout. The Lord goes up with the sound of the ram's horn. Make music for God. Make music. Make music for our King. Make music. For God is the King of all the earth. Make music for him with a wise song. God reigns as King over the nations. God is seated on his holy throne. The nobles of the peoples come together as the people of the God of Abraham. Yes, the shields of the earth belong to God. He is greatly exalted. Amen. Please rise.